Have you ever been in the middle of an argument with your boss, your partner, or a parent, feeling that righteous fire in your chest, ready to finally stand up for yourself, and then your vision blurs, your throat tightens, your voice cracks, and before you can stop it, tears start spilling over? You're not sad, you're furious, you're frustrated, but your body is doing something you definitely did not consent to. The other person looks at you differently. They see weakness, immaturity, drama. Maybe they even say, "Why are you crying? It's not that big of a deal." In 1 second, you go from feeling like a strong adult to feeling like a child having a meltdown. Part of you wants to keep arguing, and another part just wants to disappear from the room. Here on Whisper Heal, the story is different. You don't cry because you're weak in conflict. You cry because your system refuses to turn off empathy and attachment even when you're furious. Your nervous system is so invested in the relationship, in fairness, in being understood that it reaches overload faster. And tears are the emergency release valve, not a failure mode. Before we decode the biology and give you tools you can actually use in the middle of an argument, Whisper Heal wants to hear from you. When was the last time anger made you cry instead of yell? Drop that moment in the comments. You're going to find out you're not the only one. Here's the truth Whisper Heal wants you to hold on to. You don't cry in conflict because you're emotionally sloppy. You cry because you run on excess caring. While a lot of people sit at 50% investment in an argument, half listening, half planning their next point, your nervous system is all in. Your empathy, your sense of justice, your fear of losing the relationship are all firing at once. If you're a highly sensitive person, this makes even more sense. Your depth of processing and your active mirror neuron system mean you're not just arguing the words, you're feeling the history behind them, the other person's hurt, and the possible future fallout all layered together. That's not overreacting. That's an all-in nervous system trying to protect everything it cares about at the same time. Think of emotional systems like engines. Most people's engines cruise at about 70%. They can push harder when they need to, but they don't stay in the red zone for long. Your engine, especially in conflict, jumps straight to 120 or even 150%. It generates more heat, more power, more focus, which is why you notice every micro-expression and every shift in tone. And just like any high-performance engine, running that hot demands a stronger cooling system. For you, that cooling system is physiological, parasympathetic activation, hormonal shifts, and yes, tears. To see why your body cools you down with tears, we need to get under the hood and look directly at how that system works. To really understand angry crying, think about a marathon runner. When they sprint, their muscles burn fuel, heart rate spikes, stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol surge, and their core temperature climbs. If it keeps rising, the system overheats, so the body does something smart. It sweats. Sweat isn't a sign of weakness, it's a cooling system that lets the runner continue instead of collapsing. In a high-stakes argument, your nervous system is doing the same thing just internally. Your sympathetic system slams the gas pedal, heart racing, shallow breaths, clenched muscles, blood flow shifting toward fight or flight. Once that arousal crosses a certain threshold, your brain flips to the brake pedal. The parasympathetic system, driven by the vagus nerve and neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, steps in to cool everything down. Research on tearful crying shows that as this parasympathetic rebound kicks in, vagal activity rises and your body starts shifting back towards safety. The visible side effect of that internal shift is tears. Just like sweat on a runner's skin, your tears are evidence that the system is trying to stabilize itself, not that you're falling apart. A key player in this switch is a midbrain structure called the periaqueductal gray, or PAG. You can think of it as the gear shifter between active defense, pushing you to argue, fight, or stand your ground, and passive coping, where the goal becomes de-escalation and survival instead of winning. When your PAG and parasympathetic system decide you're too hot, they nudge you out of attack mode and into surrender mode. Your shoulders drop, your voice softens, and your eyes fill. That's why you sometimes hold it together during the confrontation, but as soon as you close the door at home, after the meeting, after the presentation, after the family dinner, you suddenly cry in the kitchen. That delayed wave is your nervous system finally switching out of battle gear and allowing the rebound to happen. Here's where it gets even wilder. Recent research from the Weizmann Institute shows that human emotional tears actually carry a chemical message. When men were exposed to women's tears in the lab, their testosterone levels dropped and brain regions tied to aggression quieted. The tears were odorless, you couldn't consciously smell anything, but the body still received the signal. In other words, your tears are not just salty water, they are a kind of invisible broadcast, a chemical signal that reaches another person's nervous system and whispers, "Stand down. This is not a hunt, this is a human." By lowering testosterone and dialing down the aggression network, tears make it biologically harder for the other person to keep attacking at full force. So when your body forces you to cry in the middle of a conflict, it's not trying to embarrass you. It genuinely thinks you might be in danger. It uses tears like a biological white flag, a chemical blanket thrown over the flames of the argument, hoping to smother the risk of violence or total relationship breakdown. Picture an ancient campfire circle, voices rising, spears at hand, tension thick in the air. If one person's eyes suddenly filled with tears, that visible vulnerability might have slowed the group just enough to stop someone from throwing the first blow. Your angry crying today is part of that same survival code, an old safety program running in a very modern world. So let's put all of this together in one image. Imagine that your nervous system is an ancient bodyguard who has been with you since the Stone Age. This bodyguard is a little clumsy, a little overdramatic, but fiercely loyal. Every raised voice, every sharp email, every disappointed look feels like a saber-toothed tiger stepping into the room. When a conflict heats up, your bodyguard doesn't check the calendar to see that it's 2026 and you're in a kitchen, not a cave. It just thinks, too dangerous, too much aggression, my person could get hurt. So it slams on every safety mechanism it has, parasympathetic rebound, chemical blanket tears, the whole system to force you out of attack mode and back towards survival. Instead of treating this bodyguard like an enemy, Whisperheel wants you to experiment with a different script. The next time your eyes sting in an argument, try saying inside your mind, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I'm safe. You can stand down." That one sentence turns shame into collaboration. It tells your nervous system, "You've got this." And because this is not just a lecture, here's your mid-video question. If your bodyguard had a name, what would you call it? Drop that name in the comments. Giving it a name is one small way of remembering your body isn't betraying you. It's on your side, even when it's a bit overzealous. Level 1 is all about invisible tools, things you can do in the middle of a conversation without anyone knowing. The first one is the lookup hack. When tears start to pool, most of us drop our gaze, which pulls us deeper into feeling mode. If instead you tilt your chin slightly up and let your eyes track the top of a wall, a bookshelf, or a doorway, you nudge your brain toward visual, outward-focused processing. This simple shift gives your nervous system a tiny message. We are still scanning the world. We're not collapsing inward yet. Combine it with a slow breath and a neutral face, and often the tears pull back just enough for you to finish your sentence. Whisperheel suggests you practice this in the mirror when you're not upset, so your body can find the move automatically when the heat rises. Hack number 2 is the math hack, or more broadly, the logic hack. The limbic system, which drives crying, and the prefrontal cortex, which does focused thinking, share resources. When you force the logic side to wake up with a specific task, it pulls energy away from the emotional surge. Try something like 100 minus 7 is 93, minus 7 is 86, minus 7 is 79, and keep going. If you have dyscalculia or math anxiety, don't torture yourself with numbers. Use another structured logic task. Silently name the days of the week backwards, or list the months in order while pairing each one with a tiny plan.
The goal is not to be clever, it's simply to flip on the logic circuit so the tear circuit has to dim. The third tool is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. When your mind is spinning after a fight, or even once you're finally alone in your room, gently name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. By dragging your attention back into your senses, you guide your autonomic nervous system out of fight or flight and back towards balance. And if those quiet tricks aren't enough, you move to level 2. Level 2 is for the moments when the invisible tricks aren't enough and you can feel the sob building in your chest. Here, the goal is not to win the argument in one go, it's to protect the relationship and your nervous system. That means calling a strategic pause, stepping out just long enough for your bodyguard to calm down so you can come back as your adult self, not your flooded self. The classic version is the water break. If your voice is shaking, you can say calmly,